Hopefully
Hey,
this
Julien,
works.
what are we doing?
Oh my god. We're trying to stream the Hungover podcast.
Bullshit, we don't stream the Hungover podcast, do we now?
Until today. It took 59 episodes, 58, however many we're up to. Welcome to the Hungover podcast, a topical podcast where we talk about everything from video games to politics, which you can get in audio form on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Google Play. You can get it in video form on youtube.com/hungovergaming, and you can get that on Mondays at 9 a.m., but you can catch it live on twitch.tv/jujubisgood or twitch.tv/comradeboyar. I believe he auto-hosts me, so it doesn't matter where we're streaming, and I auto-host him. So go ahead and give us a follow there if you want to see all the inner workings of Hungover Gaming live, unedited, unscripted, and raw, as they call it. But you can catch it live. That would be awesome. We can interact with the chat as well. So if you want to have any questions for us on the podcast you'd like read, send it into the chat or send it into the comment section below, or even gaminghungover@gmail.com. All that information's in the description below as well. Yvonne, we start our podcast. It would be great also if you wrote us an iTunes review. 5 stars would be preferable, but it's up to you guys. Listen to the podcast first. Yvonne, we start our podcast out every single week by asking, what did you drink last night, and what media have you been consuming?
I drank... I had a Moscow Mule.
Nice.
With no lime.
No lime.
Just because I didn't have lime.
I'm impressed. I am impressed.
Then I had a Ruski Standard.
I'm sure it was good.
A muddled lemon, no lime, because yet again I don't have limes.
Well, hey, you can only get so many things in a drink, right?
I agree. It just occurred to me that I might need to pull up this on Twitch too. In any case.
No, you don't have to, but if you want to.
Well, I can see the chat now.
Yeah, you should at least pull up the chat.
Oh, I really need to mute myself. Okay, cool. In other news, I have been consuming some media. I've been going back and rewatching some Psych.
Nice. Whoa. That is an old show, but still airing, I believe.
No, it's well
over?
Off the air.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, shit. I've seen... Oh, no, I've just seen people... I thought I saw commercials for it, but I actually just saw people watching it on the train. Which is completely, because I'm one of those guys that peers over onto what you're doing on your phone in New York City in the train. So tough luck if I'm standing behind you. It's creepy.
Solid.
But what do you do when you're standing for an hour? I don't know.
You play video games, I assume.
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to do that. I usually like to sit down when I'm playing Switch, but whatever.
In other news, I have been doing some Sea of Thieves this week.
Nice.
We had a Let's Play that came out on Friday. Go check that out, where we played, I put that in quotes, played Sea of Thieves the first time. Our costumes are much better than our abilities in the game, and when we started out, we didn't... The voyages that we took were real shit.
Yeah.
They were real shit.
Get a chicken. Get 2 chickens. One's rarer than the other.
But really not that rare. You know what's really rare in that game? A goddamn chicken coop.
And of course, this game is on Xbox One and PC as well, but you need Xbox Live to play, and it's an online-only game, unfortunately.
Yep.
Which is the weird thing. I mean, I guess I can chime in on this game, if you don't mind. It's an interesting game in that it's sort of like a shared world, a shared server that you're on. So anyone at any time, I guess, that's on that server will just show up in your game on a ship. And they won't necessarily play nicely as well. Anyways, so you can end up playing by yourself. You can play this game by yourself, which is cool, at least. And it's going to be more difficult. So you're going to be on the smaller ship, the sloop, and that way you can mostly manage the angle of your sail and the anchor and steering the ship left and right and tacking, as Yvonne so elegantly puts it. You know, he's very good with sailing. He almost won a yacht race once. I hear.
No, I almost come in not last.
Anyways.
To be fair, that was impressive.
Not less.
There were 2 of us on the boat.
Was it a sloop?
It was the equivalent of a sloop.
But a smaller boat, I'm guessing.
We couldn't run the spinnaker because I don't have that much knowledge. It wasn't a spinnaker race anyway. There are two of us, and we didn't have enough weight to actually, like, weigh down
out on the Long
ship.
Island Sound, I'm guessing.
It's fun. I've got to say, being a boat, quite fun. It's scary to hold the till.
Yeah,
because the thing about a boat and when you have the till is that it's the opposite. So you push right to go left, and you pull left to go right, or push left to go right.
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah.
Makes sense.
Right, left,
it's
left,
like
right.
In reverse.
Yes,
literally.
because
physics.
So occasionally, like, you're doing it, and then you get into your head. Yeah. Like, if you start thinking about it, then you confuse yourself. But if you don't think about it, it all makes sense.
Just like Sea of Thieves. But anyways, in Sea of Thieves, as I was saying, you can end up... It'll take around 30 minutes or 15 to 30 minutes to complete a quest. So if you get all the way to the point where you get all this gear... Or not gear, but let's say you're digging up a pirate's treasure, right? You put it on your boat, and then randomly someone can come by and destroy your boat. And because you're playing alone, you can't really... And they end up having one or two people, at least. You can end up getting screwed over. So, and it seems to me that everyone that's playing this game is very hostile. Although you ran into someone who was trying to be your friend.
I've met 3 groups of people. One was in our Let's Play. They killed us 3 times in a row, including spawn camping us. That's a really great thing that I love this game for.
It's very strange, right? As soon as you die, right, you get sent to this creepy ghost pirate ship, and then you go through a portal to get back, and it spawns you on your ship that that the other guys have already infiltrated, and they're ready to kill you as you show up. So
I spawned onto
camping.
the sword point of an enemy player, basically.
Oh my God.
Like, I spawned not knowing that they could be on my ship, and I was already skewered.
Right. They really need to fix that. But I mean, I sort of understand why people would be hostile. I mean, you're a fucking pirate. It sort of makes sense.
It's also part of the interesting point of the game. It's like there aren't a lot of other like CPU ships to fight against. So
or at least
playing
that we
other
found.
players makes sense. So, like, of the 3 squads that we've come across, 2 were hostile, and 1 I became hostile against.
Yeah. And I run into other people. I went on a 30-minute quest, and then someone came over, sailed over to my ship. They got right up next to me because they were fairly good at steering, and I was by myself playing, so that's why it took so long. And they sent someone over with a barrel of gunpowder, and then he shot the gunpowder and killed himself and also killed me and destroyed my ship. It was fucking insane.
And then they went and dove for the things that you had on board.
Exactly. So, I mean, I understand that mentality, but I would like, if you're going to play by yourself, I would like for there to be either a separate server or something like that for solo players only. I think that would make much more sense.
The thing that really pissed me off is the last night I was playing right before I took a break to hang out with my girlfriend, and I was like, I had finished all of my quests. I was in the midst of going to finish a quest that a voyage that I just gotten. So I'm on the beach. So I'm heading to the island, and I see masts in the distance. Yeah. As it tells you, I whipped up my spyglass and I pointed it over there. And I was like, a mast. And then I noticed 2 other masts. Guess what? It's a galleon, and I'm on a sloop alone.
You're fucked.
So in the same server where you have people playing alone on a sloop, you have people that are playing on a galleon.
Which is a larger ship for those who
It's got 6 cannons, masts. 3 on each side or something like that, as opposed to the sloop, which has 1 cannon on each side. And so you can sail it with a small crew, or you can sail it, which is 4 people, or a 6-person crew.
Yeah.
So that means that this galleon was coming up against me. So I steer away from them. I'm going to my island. I'm going this way.
Yeah.
They're going this way. So if I'm going like east, they're going southwest. So I'm like, okay, we won't see each other.
Thank
and
God.
then Laura comes into the room and I'm like, hey, I'm playing this game. There were some masts over there. Let me show you. So I whip out my spyglass and I'm looking at the thing. Turns out I noticed, wow, I don't see their masts, but I see like an island where they were going. So then I had already dropped anchor, so I'm going to infiltrate this island, get my chest, get back on, head to an outpost as quick as possible. And I land, and I'm on the shore, and I turn, and right there is the galleon.
Oh my God. Slowly
just
coming up.
floating past. It's like
GG.
what's that? The Flying Dutchman?
The Dutchman, yeah.
The old Flying Dutchman just...
God damn it.
You're clear, you're clear. Just sailing past me. I see a guy is literally just in front of me in the water. And the thing about swimming in the water is when I go to swing, he's like, by the time I finished my stroke, he's like way ahead of me because he's sprinting.
Yeah.
And there was no way that I was going to beat this galleon because they were opening fire on my sloop while I was on the beach. So there was no way I could even defend myself. So whatever. I can probably best like some people in sword combat. Now that I got the sword combat mechanics down, like jumping around, blocking, everything. I've got some of the mechanics down. But still, it was an impossible fight, so I just left.
Yeah, I guess
just quit the game.
The point I'm trying, yeah, I rage quit literally. The point I'm trying to get across is basically it's like this game is probably really cool if you have a 6-man crew and you're going in and you're fucking shit up and you're completing quests and getting all this cool shit and playing the music and shit with 6 people. It's probably fun, but it's not fun to play alone. And also another gripe I have with the game is there's no sense of player progression. That I was assuming was going to be in this game. Granted, I didn't really look up too much about it, so maybe I should have just known. But I was assuming this would be more like an RPG, where you level up your character, you become stronger or something, or at least you're getting better gear. It seems to me that the gear is only cosmetic, except for maybe the guns. So I guess, and maybe the swords.
I think those are cosmetic too. Honestly.
Yeah, honestly, I think they're. I mean, you can get different types of guns, but yeah, they're probably just cosmetic. So at least for now, the game.
There are 3 types of guns.
Yeah.
You've got your pistol,
the shotgun,
which is good at close range. You've got the blunderbuss, which is like a shotgun, and then you have the sniper rifle or the rifle, whatever it's called. Which is terrible because it's got an arcing bullet. It's really hard to use. Just use the pistol or the blunderbuss.
Exactly. So I don't necessarily. The game seems like it can be really fun, but so far the majority of it is not very fun so far for us at least. But if you like the Let's Play and you like us to play more of Sea of Thieves and dress up as pirates, definitely tell us in the comment section below. We'll probably do more.
We're gonna do more because I didn't spend $5 at the dollar store for nothing.
That's true. Fair enough. Yvonne, what else did you do? What else were you up to this week?
What else was I up to this week? I've played some Overwatch this week. I'm sorry, there's a book I wanted to grab. I forgot to grab before we started.
That's fine. You can grab it if you want.
I will in a second. I'll do that while you're talking.
Okay.
Did I see any movies? So I've seen 3 movies, I think. The last 3 movies that I saw, one was Black Panther we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. I saw Gringo, which I talked about last week, and I saw Annihilation, which I talked about a few weeks ago. And those are the movies that I've seen other than anything that I've watched on Netflix. Basically, nothing new. Been watching a lot of Overwatch League. And excited for later today.
Yes.
Because that's when the Stage 2 playoffs are. And much to my surprise, Seoul Dynasty didn't make it, but the other 2 Korean teams did.
Yes.
So again, we've got New York Excel and London Spitfire, and then an American team.
Hey, all the more...
Even though the Fusion is the most international team.
Yes, that is the weird thing.
Their starting lineup is a South Korean... Finnish guy, an Israeli.
Whoa.
They've got... Where's Neptuno from? He's like some sort of Spanish-speaking country, I think. and then
Latin
Poco is
America.
Spanish speaking as well. And who's left? Oh, and Boombox is British.
Okay, cool.
And then
Exciting.
on the bench, Shadowburn,
That's
Russia.
at 4, right? Or it starts at 4
Yeah,
p.m.
it starts at
on
4.
Sunday. Awesome. We'll be checking that out, and we'll give you the scoop on our Overwatch replay that comes out on Wednesdays. So we'll have that up for you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, Vaughn. For me, I've been playing, of course, Sea of Thieves. We already talked about.
Oh, Far Cry 4 I
Oh, you play Far
also
Cry 4.
bought. And then I also bought Heroes of Might and Magic 7.
I thought
So I
you already
played a
had
little bit
Far
of
Cry
that.
4.
I rebought it for PC because I wanted to
Okay.
see the graphic stuff. And I'm bored of playing PS4 first-person shooters.
Yes, this is true. But for me, I played, aside from uh, Sea of Thieves, I finally finished Kirby Star Allies. That game was pretty fun. I had a good time playing that. Sorry for Yvonne's green screen not being keyed out currently, because his camera has. This is what you get when you watch it live, and also when I try to key out a Skype video. But now it's keyed out. Anyways, but yeah, I finished Kirby Star Allies, and that game was pretty fun. Not much. I pretty much 100%ed it on my first try, so it's a pretty easy game. But I mean, honestly, games are supposed to be fun, and this game is very fun. So I suggest, if you have a Nintendo Switch and you can get it on discount, maybe you have Nintendo Switch money laying around, so it doesn't. If it's already a sunken cost, get it. Then, if you're looking for a game for your kid, for instance, maybe your father or mother. And your kid is looking for a new game on Nintendo Switch, I highly suggest it. I think it's also really good if you're trying to get maybe a significant other into video gaming. I think this game is a really good place to start. It's fairly intuitive with its controls, and it's really colorful and cute, and it's really pleasing to the eye. And I think it's a really fun game. It's just all around easy to play and fun. And there's a couple extra modes you unlock that I'm currently going through after that, once you beat the game, which is pretty cool. So it's got some legs. It's not just the single player mode. The other thing I played was Ni no Kuni 2, which finally came out. I've been waiting forever for this game since it was announced, I think, 2 years ago at PSX. So much fun. That game it's the sequel to Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch, PlayStation 3 exclusive.
It looks beautiful too.
Yeah, it's the first game. This game is a sequel, in that it's in the same world. It's not necessarily a continuation of the story per se, because it takes place, I think, 30 years after the first one. And so those characters are no longer in the game, which is sad, but I mean, it's time to move on. They have also completely changed the battle system in the game. So in the first game, you would end up it was a little like Pokemon. You would end up capturing enemies, and they could level up and evolve even, which was pretty cool. So you ended up fighting with them, but you could also fight with the main character. So that was pretty cool. I like that battle system a lot, but I think this Japanese studio, Level 5, really likes to push their games forward and change them. They don't like to make sequels that are pretty much the same game, but with better graphics and a new story. So they completely overhauled the combat system. So now it's a real-time combat system. Well, the other game was more or less a real time. It was more like you had cooldowns, and you just push the button, and your player would auto attack as well. So it was sort of like an MMO in that way. But this game, you're actually pushing the buttons, so it's more like a third person action game. But it's also an RPG. So far, it's also pretty easy. I guess I'm just in easy mode game mode right now, so that's what I'm playing. But I did come across an enemy that was pretty difficult, so I'm looking forward to grinding it out to beat that enemy. They have these really difficult enemies in the overworld. But also, they partnered with Studio Ghibli, at least on the first game, and I think they've carried over the art style into this game, and so that it also looks almost exactly like a Studio Ghibli movie, which is really cool, I think. And I'm pretty sure they also partnered with the music studio that does the music for Studio Ghibli movies, because the music
cool.
is spectacular in the game. So if you're looking for a JRPG on PS4, I highly suggest you pick it up. It's very fun. And what else have I been playing? I've been playing a lot of Halo 5, actually, due to the fact that I'm getting very tilted in Overwatch, and I'd rather play Halo 5 because that's a game that I can play on my own, and just have fun. Actually, I've been playing the ranked mode in it. It's very competitive, but it's Halo. It's very fun. So it's obviously very skill based, but you can do pretty well on your own if you're skilled enough. So I think that's pretty good. Also, they had a Halo 3 throwback playlist, which is pretty cool because it's, I think, the 20th anniversary of, no, it must be the 10th anniversary of Halo 3, because that game came out in 2008, I'm guessing. And so they basically make it play like Halo 3, and they remade a bunch of the maps. So that's also really awesome. So there's no sprint or dash and shit like that they added to Halo 5. But that game is just all around really fun. It's also on PC, and it's free on PC. So if you have a PC and you've been wanting to play Halo 5, just go search in the Microsoft Store for Halo 5 and download Halo 5 Forge, and you can play Halo 5, at least in custom game modes. It's not the full game, but it's still pretty fun. Aside from that, that's about it for me. Of course, I saw Black Panther, which is a good enough transition, if anything, if ever, to talk about the topic of the show, which is our Black Panther review. You guys have been waiting for this. You want to know our opinions on the movie, so here it is. Yvonne, how many Hungover Gaming seal of approvals out of 5 do you give this movie?
I give this movie 5 rhinoceroses out of 7 herbs that grant you the Black Panther power.
Those were just flowers, I thought. They're herbs. Yeah, that was a. God damn it. I give it I think I like this movie more than you, based on your brief opinion from last week. I sort of fall on the side, I guess, of the general populace of the people that saw this movie. I think it was pretty good. I have some gripes with it, but I guess we'll be seen as a racist because we don't like this. Because anything we say negative about this movie is going to bite us in the end. So we probably should.
It's a difficult topic to come to talk about, I think.
Okay. So that's why we're tackling it on the podcast. What book were you looking for?
So this is the book I was looking for. It's
Super
called
Black.
Super Black, American Pop Culture and Black Superheroes. It is a book that I was the TA for when it was taught in the Intro to African American Studies class.
When was it written?
It's a fairly recent book.
But not Black Panther recent, I'm assuming.
No, it doesn't have the Black Panther movie, but it has the character. So it was published in 2011. Cool. So it does talk about Black Panther as the character when he was published in the 1950s, 1960s.
Yeah, obviously a direct connection to the Black Panther civil rights group during that time period, I'm guessing.
I coincidentally, the Black Panther became the symbol of 3 different things. Basically, it was the encapsulation of the idea of Black Power that arose in the 60s. So the first usage of Black Panther as a political symbol is from the Alabama Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. So Bloody Lowndes. So this was back when Democrats were heavily populated in the South, and there were Dixiecrats, and so the Alabama Democratic Party had the White Rooster, and the Freedom Democratic Party, or the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, used the symbol of a Black Panther. In the same year, later you got the Black Panther like organization for self-defense, and those are the Black Panthers that you think of with the fist in the air and stuff
the
like
Black
that.
Power symbol.
But as well, in the same year, basically, I think even earlier than either of those, from my brief recap of reading this book, is you get Black Panther, the character, who first appears in the as an semi-antagonist to the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, he fought Doctor Doom. I thought he fought Doctor Doom a lot, though. Didn't he?
He will. He'll join them, but the first thing that he does is he lures the Fantastic Four to Wakanda and sets up a series of elaborate traps to test their skills and his own ability to go out and fight the enemy that we encounter in the film Black Panther, Ulysses Claw.
Yeah, and I guess we're gonna go into full spoilers. I mean, if you click on a review of a movie, maybe you're not expecting spoilers, but we're gonna go into full spoilers just for how it is. I guess I should. Well, fuck it, whatever. No one's watching on the Twitch.
Full
anyways.
spoiler.
But
cast
yeah, we're going
here.
full spoiler cast right now. If you haven't seen the movie, stop listening to the podcast. Go watch the movie, then click play on the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, spoilers.
This is why we've given some time for people if we didn't review it immediately.
Yeah.
And so things like that. We like to give some time for people to see movies
Also,
and form opinions
yeah, like
and have
specifically
conversations.
me.
I mean, I didn't go see it till
That's
last
true.
week, so it's not like we saw it opening weekend.
Yeah.
All right, so let's
let's
Ulysses
lay this
S.
out. Claw. He's dead in the movie.
Yeah, he dies. He does.
Yeah.
So the opening to the movie is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It is basically like Compton or something like that.
It's Oakland.
Oakland.
Yeah.
So we've got L.A. in the time of strife.
Yeah.
This is like post Watts and post. Is it post Rodney King?
It's 92. So I'm assuming summertime, but then again, it's California. But I think so. It was 92. So, I know that.
Yeah, 91 is when the event happened. So
yeah.
I think that the riots I'll put there. I think they're not really riots. Happened in 1992 as a result of the all of the officers involved in beating of Rodney King being acquitted. So it's an intriguing time to really investigate, and you've got these guys who are setting up to have some sort of heist or something.
Right, yeah.
And then Wakandans appear.
Yeah, that was interesting. And they're both of them, however, are Wakandans. But turns out. Yeah, they've been placed in as spies. I didn't quite understand it until I guess later on in the movie when it's explained. But as far as I got, they were placed there as spies for the outside world. I have no idea why they were really placed there.
So essentially we get the idea that Wakanda is a very secretive territory that doesn't allow outsiders into their territory.
Yeah.
But they're always looking out to how black people are treated in other countries, or so it seems, or like they're just keeping tabs on other countries, and they're doing this through a series of agents that are allowed to go outside. And all the agents can identify as Wakandans because they have vibranium tattoos in their lips, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was a interesting intro to the movie, and then they just sort of show up and they're sort of like aliens almost, and then they fly away in their fancy cool ship because obviously a vibranium meteorite or comet, not comet, but I guess meteor hit Earth specifically.
It is meteorite when a meteor hits the Earth.
Okay, so I was right with my first. It hits this. I guess it's in the center of Africa almost. That's pretty much where they sort of outlined it to be. It doesn't really matter exactly where.
Wakanda is kind of where modern-day Rwanda is in the outline of the map. So it's kind of like Eastern DRC, Rwanda. It's kind of where It's close to like the heart of the Nile, basically.
Right, and the
Um,
vibranium seeped into the everything and made them powerful. It's basically, and also advanced their technology to a point where they could go under the radar completely, and also have a very flourishing country as well. So
right.
that was cool.
And so, in opposition to this, is you see that the real world is still going on with the harsh treatment of African people,
Yeah.
black people across the world. So, in this opening scene, it sets up a very intriguing thing because it's a dialogue between Wakandans, who shouldn't be necessarily trying to cause political unrest in different places,
Right.
and the brother of the king of Wakanda, who's attempting to empower resistance movements within LA and
Mm-hmm.
Oakland. So it's an interesting dynamic that we see will be referred to kind of on the outskirts of the plot throughout the film.
Yeah.
Um, then we get Killmonger and Ulysses Claw stealing objects from a museum. Then we get the Black Panther Wakandan response to this.
Yeah.
So they're going to try and take out Ulysses Claw.
They
Then,
go to Seoul. I thought that was a pretty cool scene in the
yeah,
casino. I always like casino scenes in
it
movies.
was super reminiscent of remember in James Bond when they go
Yeah,
to
they go to
that
Macau
Asian casino.
and they went to Macau in isn't that Casino Royale?
I don't think
Or
I
was
think
it
it
the
was
second one?
it was Skyfall.
Skyfall. Okay. Yeah, that I like that scene. That was a cool scene in James Bond. Thought it was really well shot. But yeah, I guess I always like casino scenes for some reason. And they're always action scenes. Maybe that's why, because they're always action scenes. Because shit goes down, gangster shit goes down at casinos, obviously. Um, so yeah, I thought that action scene, the whole chase, was pretty entertaining. What did you think of the overall action in the movie? Did you think it sort of fit with um, Marvel's
Let me
motif?
lay down some things of
Yeah,
like
let's organize this first.
yeah. So let me
You
lay
got it.
down why I wasn't the biggest fan of this movie.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of this movie because it's a Marvel movie that we've seen before, even if it has a different kind of aesthetic and skin. And I don't mean that in the literal sense of it, but I also there are
Poor
black
choice of
actors in it.
words.
Um, and there are it's an almost all black cast, which is fantastic, I guess. I'll explain more of my
Are
reasoning
you
behind that
saying
later.
that diversity for diversity's sake is not necessary? Okay, whatever. So keep
No,
going.
I have a different kind of
Yeah.
take on it. But in general, I thought this movie was very plotting. It was very slow.
Mm-hmm.
It was very predictable. The fact that there are, again, no stakes in a movie that Disney is making makes these movies super lame and super boring, because T'Challa has plot armor, and basically anyone that's related to T'Challa will have plot armor, except for his father, who we know has already died
Yeah.
at the start of this movie. So there's not any consequence to anything, including the fact when there is the civil war in Wakanda over the throne, like Daniel Kaluuya's character and Denai Guerrera's character don't kill each other. Like,
Right.
they stop the fight before any lives of important characters can be lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever, red shirts will die all the time in action movies. So there are barely any stakes. There's very slow plotting points throughout this whole movie. The philosophy and the kind of dialogue of the importance of having black characters talk about black issues is dulled by the fact that it's a Disney property and we can't really properly discuss anything because everyone is going to say we're talking about race and politicizing Marvel movies too much.
That's true.
And lastly, I thought the action sequences were super boring.
Yeah.
And that's probably my biggest gripe. Like, this Black Panther versus Black Panther suit fight was just CGI suit versus CGI suit.
Yeah, I
Super
didn't
boring.
like that.
And the Rhino fight was literally just lifted from The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, where instead sub rhinos, the jackals that the hyena things that they ride with rhinoceroses, and it's the exact same fight.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. I didn't like I didn't like the CG rhinos. I thought that was kind of lame. I didn't like that whole fight of amongst the tribes in right in front of the palace. I guess I didn't like that fight at all. Actually,
I thought every bit of action in this movie was boring.
I like the chase scene. I just like car scenes personally.
The chase scene
I thought that was the best. Personally.
The chase scene was also the best because there was some humor in it, and this movie was devoid of any humor. There were like 4 jokes in this whole movie.
The only humorous character was the scientist that I guess is his sister.
Letitia Wright's character. Yeah, his sister.
I thought she was very funny. I like, and also she was essentially, who's the scientist for James Bond?
Q.
Q. She was basically Q in the movie, but more humorous. But Q has some funny lines, I guess, sometimes. But
Q is a very humorous character.
Yeah.
In all of his, whether it's the Welsh actor who's playing him or the new actor who's playing him. But I like Q.
I also have, I mean, this one scene, it was maybe 2 or 3 seconds shot. It was a close-up tight shot of Michael Jordan's face. Michael B. Jordan. I know. Michael Jordan's face. And it was towards the end of the fight, or it was the end of the fight. He was just laying on the rail, and he was, I don't know, he was impaled, I guess. And it was just a really close-up shot of him. And you could clearly, I don't know, they didn't light it correctly. It looks like, I guess, our green screen, essentially. If we put the same, we would look the same if we put that background behind us. It was so clearly just poorly shot, and it was like the shot of him. It was a close-up shot of him, and he was dying. So I really, I don't know, maybe if I saw it again, it might look better, but it didn't look right when I saw it. It looked very cheap. It looked like, I guess, Star Wars Episode 2.
And that's the point that I want to make. Like, the director of this film, Ryan Coogler, has made some fantastic movies, and he's done them with Michael B. Jordan. Like, Creed, there's a boxing match, which is a single-shot fight for, like, 3 minutes that was real. It was so visceral and real, and it was cool, and you could feel all of the action and see it, and then you add CGI and Marvelize it, and it's lost.
Well, this, I don't necessarily think it's entirely up to him at that point, because Disney has so much influence over all these movies, as well as Marvel Studios, and they're trying to make this whole epic 10-year plan cohesive. And so and they've sort of shifted towards using the same exact technology that they're using in every single movie now, in Marvel Studios specifically, and they're trying to make it all look cohesive. So at the end, when you buy the whole collection, because that's clearly what they're going to push whenever this is all done in 40 years, when you buy the whole collection, you can go back to Iron Man 1 and say that, oh, this still looks the same as Black Panther, and you see obviously more progression because it's been 10 years. But I don't necessarily disagree with that mentality, but I don't like how they're employing it, as you don't either, I'm guessing. I agree that this is cool, that they've planned it all out, and they want it to be one long epic tale of the Avengers progressing through time and whatever, and eventually Robert Downey Jr. is going to have to quit because he's getting old, and Samuel L. Jackson's, I don't know, they sort of wrote his character out, right? Didn't he die? I don't know.
He's Nick Fury? Dead yet, I don't think
well,
so.
he's getting old, obviously, so he's going to have to be written out at some point or something like that. And
all of the Avengers are going to change up after the Infinity War.
After Infinity War?
Because their contracts are too large.
Okay. I guess so. I guess Captain America is going to die in that movie or something. And then Black Panther will take over. That would be cool. But yeah, so I like the idea that they've planned it all out, and all these movies are so interwoven between each other, so you go see the next one. But I don't like that it's all looking like Thor Ragnarok, in that it's just, I don't know if it's all, I don't know exactly how they're filming this, but the majority of it is CGI, and it all has that same sort of filter over it, that it sort of looks the same. It sort of ends up looking the same. So
Yeah,
I
there's this
agree with
this
what you're saying.
unifying thematic, just like the DC universe has
Yeah.
that unifying Zack Snyder bullshit look.
Yeah.
The Marvel universe has a similar like aesthetic to
Mm-hmm.
everything, which I much prefer the Marvel aesthetic to the DC aesthetic. I
Yeah.
will say that, and I think Marvel in general is a better producer of films.
Yeah.
However, they're so fucking boring.
They're getting boring.
They I
Anyways, yeah.
like I've come to the realization that I don't need the entire movie to be just joke after joke after joke
Yeah.
like Thor Ragnarok was or Guardians is as a as a series, but it's got to be more humorous than what this was for me to really enjoy it as a film. Now,
Right.
this is not to say that it. So these are two, like, my essential critique is two different things. So, critique as a film and critique as a message and a conversation that we're having in terms
Yeah.
of politics and where we are in the world and representation of black people in mass media. These are
Mm-hmm.
two different things. As a film, this isn't Ryan Coogler's best work. It's definitely heavy-handed from the studio. I think I think the script was also cut down as from what it should have been in terms of addressing these issues and different things and being funnier. And I think that in general, this movie was like an hour long, longer than it should have been, and or it should have been a different movie.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
The
so
the thing I liked about it was that there wasn't really any. It wasn't like shoveled in to Marvel at all. I didn't really see any real connection aside from Stan Lee being in it. Obviously, he's in every movie, but um, I actually I kind of liked his cameo. I guess it whatever. It's Stan Lee. But I didn't. I liked that they didn't like have some infinity. They didn't find an infinity stone or whatever they're called in the movie at Wakanda or something, or just try to have Iron Man float by at some point. It was specifically all about Wakanda, the conflict happening in Wakanda. So I thought that was, at least that was pretty cool. I thought, and then but yeah, I agree with your sentiment. It's a I didn't necessarily. I mean, a lot of people like this sort of action. So, I mean, if you like it, you like it. It's not up to us to tell you whether or not to see this movie. If you haven't seen it, well, we already discussed you should have seen the movie. But yeah. So I personally don't like this action either. I would have at least they can create these cool action, like a larger scale action scene. Using all CGI as opposed to having shaky cam. I hate shaky cam when it comes to action scenes. I would prefer something more like The Matrix. When it comes to action scenes, those are wide shots usually, some tight shots as well, and it's on a tripod essentially, or at least a moving tripod. So in terms of action, I mean, I can't really talk about the racial conflict going on because I mean I don't know much. I mean I know what I know, but it's probably going to come across stupid, and no matter what I say, so I just won't say anything. But yeah, so I mean as far as I could tell, I guess on that topic is it seemed, I don't know. I thought it was cool to have sort of the newer, more modern. I guess Black or African American mentality coming in and trying to take over Wakanda, which is more, I guess, representative of sort of like a pure African, I guess, mentality. But I mean, obviously, it's dulled down by Disney's influence. But I thought it was cool to have the conflict between. I guess African American and just African. I thought that was cool, but
so I don't think that as much as that was the like political like or the origin story, like
Yeah.
one is African American, one is African. I think the conflict was beyond that. I think the real conflict was like how to approach an idea of Pan Africanism,
Yeah.
and one in which you're growing up feeling the oppression and the systematic violence and the structural violence of a system,
Mm-hmm.
and one in which you don't have the structural violence of a system as a power keeping you down. So, like in Wakanda, if you grow up in Wakanda, you have this defensive perimeter, no outsiders are allowed.
Yeah.
You have beautiful technology. It's kind of an idea of a utopian society, I guess. I don't really know how the structure of Wakandan society works. We only see the upper echelons, really, of that
Yeah, that's
society.
true.
We don't know if there are poor people,
There
what
were
kind of
some
crises.
scenes where they're walking through the village, or I guess, but they didn't really talk to anyone. There were no characters talking to them. They were just there. So it
Exactly.
was
So we
strange.
don't, as much as we want Wakanda to be a utopian society, and we can see that there are a lot of good and high technology exists within the society,
Mm-hmm.
we don't really know how the society is structured.
Yeah.
In terms of merchant classes, do people have work, or and what kind of work is it? Is it a socialist system, communist system? Is it a capitalist system? I don't get I didn't get the sense of what kind of
It's a
society it
monarchy.
was.
They have a king, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a weird combination of monarchy and matriarchal
Mm-hmm.
society, which is not unknown within African society. One of the interesting things is this kind of dual gender structure within African society, where men rule over men and women rule over women,
Mm-hmm.
and they have different kind of titular statuses, and they have different realms in which they work. So like men would be in control of things like medicine and the spirituality and things like that, whereas women would be in control, kind of ironically to a Western eye, of like the market and
Mm-hmm.
those spaces. So the economy flowed through women, and whereas the spiritual and medicinal flowed through men. And that was a largely can be extrapolated to some extent to many African nations
Mm-hmm.
throughout. But is very much associated with the Igbo people of Nigeria.
I see.
So it's interesting that they kind of
And
exemplified the different structures of African society within this one Wakandan society. I did
right.
like that there were so many prominent women in place.
I thought that was awesome. Mostly every single woman in the movie was had a very had a very prominent role. They're all badass pretty much. So I
Yeah.
thought, anyways.
And then we have the overall structure of this fight, like Killmonger representing this feeling of having grown up in the structural violence
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to as many it's a real conversation of the time period of like the 50s and things like that, of when Africa was liberated, right? So you have a violent revolution in a lot of places that would be able to overthrow colonial power
Mm-hmm.
versus a mixture of violent, peaceful power and transition. So think of like Jomo Kenyatta or things like that, or even Nelson Mandela. It's a mixture of both violence and peaceful political power, whereas Algeria is much more a violent overthrowing of French colonial power.
Okay.
So it's kind of like Killmonger is that representation of violence needs to be countered with violence, and by arming the people, they are able to overthrow the kind of imbalance that is generated from multiple generations of denial of service, denial of occupation, removal of body, and no control over body. So like.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there African Americans in America, right? How did this demographic emerge? much of that demographic emerged from the establishment of slavery as a system of economic gain for rich white people. Um, and so it is an intriguing conversation to have, and one in which I am much more aligned in the general consensus with, like, you need to compete with structural violence, some, like, at least to an extent, with actual violence. I think
Yeah,
so.
there's a place for violence, right?
Like,
I
or
guess in
militancy, right?
yeah.
Like, there's a place for Black Lives Matter to be militant in the streets, not necessarily killing people, but like being present. Being militant doesn't mean that you're uh, using weapons or things like that, but you are visible and things like that. Or Black Panthers being visibly armed and stuff, and using that as a backbone of their presence, but also using social good programs. Like the best thing that Black Panthers did in terms of benefiting their community was like free breakfast programs, literacy programs, things like that, like social goods. So there is a level of militancy or violence against structural violence that needs to occur in order for progress to be obtained in a lot of different systems of oppression. So in that sense, I'm really along on the side of Killmonger, but in the end, we learned that you must be the peaceful, go through politics and have to explain yourself to white people and help them, like that T'Challa represents, and that money is the way to buy people out of poverty, which I don't necessarily think I agree with. So I don't know that I've learned a lot from this film
Well,
in terms of the political message, which was, again, I say again, super dulled down and super dumbed down
okay.
throughout the movie.
Right. And that's I'm trying to come at this movie from a different perspective. I mean, you're coming at it from the through the political movement, which I think it has a place. But I think you have to. I think personally, you have to think of who's this movie for. It's trying to reach a very broad audience. I'm not trying to defend Disney in any way. They're a very large company that I don't know. They have probably some bad practices. I don't know, something like that. But I think this movie is still at its root as still a superhero movie, right? So I know it has the platform and potential to get across a very powerful message, and it should take advantage of that. And I think that's partially why you're so angry about, or not. Sorry, poor word choice of word. Not angry, but and that's partially why you're disappointed with this movie. That it didn't get across a message that it could have potentially gotten across, which would have been great. But I think in reality, this movie's still it's still for kids partially, and at least half of the audience is gonna be kids. So I think in reality, I mean, when you're a young black kid, I guess it'd be great to have an idol that's also black. So T'Challa can fill that void, I guess, in some ways. So I think that at least getting across the point where there's this movie that's almost entirely all black people in the movie, I think that's still great. And I think when you're a kid, you're not so much invested in the political movement, although there are children that are very politically active. I mean, look at the
The
all the
march we just
the
had.
marches happen, and I think that's great. But I think you also still need a place to have movies that I guess sort of like this, where you're just getting that in the conversation. Oh, we now have a movie that kids can look up to. I mean, in the same way that I guess kids looked up to Superman in a way. Like he's just a superhero, but you can fantasize about being Superman or whatever in that sort of light. That's sort of
I
another way to look at this movie, I think.
Yeah, and I think that this is my main problem with the significance of this movie.
Yeah.
So my main problem is that we're relying the conversation around this movie is a lot about representation in the media and different things, and having black stories told by black people with black actors,
Yeah.
right? So we have two black writers, we have a black director, We have a black cast,
and
for the most
Kendrick
part.
Lamar wrote the music, which
Yeah,
was cool.
which I would have loved to hear a lot more of.
Yeah,
I
it was
thought it
mostly
was.
Marvel scores or whatever, but he had I heard some of it, or at least I noticed some of it was very very scarce, I think,
I
throughout the
loved
movie,
it,
but it was
and
good.
but I wish there was more of it. Like
It
I could
should have
have
been way
enjoyed.
more.
Yeah. That aside, I think my main thing is that we're having kind of like two levels of conversation at the same time, and one of the things is like,
Yes,
yes, it's
sorry for the
important
confusion. Right.
for black people, black kids to have black heroes to look up to. That's
Yeah.
great. I'm not denying that that's a thing. However, then we're having another level of conversation of look how important it is to have black people cast in movies. They can lead movies. Look how much money this is making. Look at this and that. And then we're having a different kind of conversation, which is like, how do we measure the importance of representation? How do we measure the importance of this kind of story? Well, we're measuring it with money. So are we then saying that the greater we should be doing this thing for representation is only important so much as that it can create a monetary benefit? So then we applying a monetary benefit to representation. So you're only going to make money if you have X, Y, and the Power Rangers, basically, like
Mm-hmm.
that gamut of people and representation, or all black representation, or all Latino representation, all Asian representation. Like, where is the point in which it's okay to talk about valuing somebody based on their skin color, or their gender status, or their sexual orientation? Like, how much of that is okay to talk about and how much of that isn't okay to talk about, and why is it important to value somebody commercially? Like, I don't understand why it's so important to have Black Panther when Moonlighting has won the Oscar for best picture, right?
Right.
It's an intriguing. Why is Black Panther more important than Moonlighting, or Moonlight, not Moonlighting? Moonlighting,
Yeah.
Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis, but Moonlight. It's a weird
Because more
conversation for me to
people
have.
saw Black Panther than that movie, I'm guessing.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. So
Why did
why are
more
we
people see that?
depending on Disney to be the arbiter of representation in our world? Disney is the worst company to have as a judge or or the initiator of a conversation about the politics behind black actors and black pay, and female black actors and female black pay, and the stance that black people need to take as Pan-Africanists, as unified greater African family. Like, Disney is the worst arbiter in
Mm-hmm.
the world to have this conversation. But capitalism demands that the largest companies can produce the largest and big budget movies, and that everybody's going to go see them, and then it will be a cycle upon itself, so that we will have the weakest message delivered to the greatest amount of people. It is the most ass backwards approach to, I think, a conversation around the politics of what this movie could represent, or what this movie represents.
You're okay. So I mean, I agree that Disney is not the person, or sorry, the company to initiate that conversation. That makes sense. Or why, or rather, you're asking why are they the people that we're putting the spotlight on right now? Um,
Why are
but
we highlighting that
or
Disney is so
highlighting,
great
sorry.
for having done this?
Yeah,
I mean, they're just creating a product that they're trying to sell the
that they're
most of. They
yeah
couldn't.
they're
Capitalism is an amoral system. They don't give a shit who they put in their movies.
right.
It's great that we can find the spaces in which to highlight African people, languages, textiles, African history. That's awesome. That's great. But it's not done in a way that is really supportive of an African agenda. It's
Okay.
an imagined African space, which is
No, of
cool
course.
in and of itself. It's not Tarzan, which was made a few years ago, which is
Mm-hmm.
a ridiculous premise for a movie or a story. I'm happy for that, but at the same time, it's kind of like this imagined space of Wakanda, and now Wakanda has taken over the representation of Africa, and we're not having conversations about Africa. Some of the things that, like, I understand that when they're speaking Kiswahili, they're speaking Xhosa, they're speaking other African languages, and all in the same sentence. It's like three different words from four different languages, right? Um, but then when they speak in Western lingua franca, it's always English.
Yeah.
Why would they choose a language of a colonizer to have a conversation with each other in? That's because it's a Disney movie, which
yeah.
has to appeal to audiences that are in English-speaking countries.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're having a debate over what's important, because we can have subtitles for the African language, but when they're going to switch to a language of a colonizer, it has to be English. You're telling me that they couldn't, in the same sentence, speak English, French, Italian, or go with a language that isn't at all a language of the colonizer?
Right. I mean, what I don't know. I don't know what you want me to say, but that's.
It's a really annoying thing, because it's mass media is a commercial product. It is a capitalist based system. They couldn't give a shit about what they're selling, as long as they can buy for $1, sell for $2. That's capitalism. And within that space of capitalism, it is good to have, as much as Disney shouldn't be the arbiter of our conversation, any company that is within the world should be part of helping out the system of a more equitable representation of all peoples. So in that, great, hands off.
Yeah, that's almost exactly what I was trying to say. Why can't this just be an example of just another thing to add to the repertoire or the resume of these actors, and also this is just another example of we're making progress towards a more diverse Hollywood and things like that. I don't know why it can't be an example.
Because at the same time, who is making the money off of this? Who is making
all the
money?
producers, Disney and Marvel,
the shareholders, which are vast majority.
You don't think Chadwick his name is Boseman Chadwick, or
Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman. He didn't make millions of dollars off of this movie.
Yes, he probably made a few $1 million, and so did like Michael B. Jordan.
I'm not saying that
and those actors are doing it, but yes, in that sense, good. Let's get black actors to make money,
and who knows,
they
probably made, maybe they made less money than, say, Brad Pitt made. I don't know this. Well, not Brad Pitt. He wasn't in any movies this year, was he? Then Tom Hanks, he was in The Post, right? Maybe he made less money than Tom Hanks, but and he probably did, let's be honest, but I guess Tom Hanks is a more high profile actor, so I don't know if you can necessarily compare it that way, but yeah, but he made, I'm assuming, millions of dollars off of this movie, and will continue to make money due to royalties, I guess. I don't know how actors get paid through royalties.
It depends on their contract.
Yeah, but I hope that he got written into the franchising through this movie, because I'm assuming they're going to make lots of action figures and things like that. But sorry to cut you off.
No. I've been talking too much in general.
But yeah, so this is a capitalist endeavor, regardless.
I understand the layers. The reason that this movie is so interesting for me to talk about is because it's a super nuanced conversation, right? And there are a lot of things which I don't understand about this movie, like the catharsis of M'Baku being able to bark down Martin Freeman when he starts to talk. Like, I don't understand the catharsis of what that is like, but many black people do. So there are things that are like it's not like a secret language, but in like the lived experience that I will never have, that is understood in the filmmaking. Like, there are some things in that I don't get that message, and it's great to have that message. And like I said, black stories with black directors and black actors, amazing to make. It's just like the level of conversation that this movie has obtained is one that I think overestimates its power to be a major turning point in the greater political conversation, just based on the fact that this is a capitalist endeavor whose entire job is to make money, and Disney only kind of created this movie to be part of the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe as a small piece, and they just happened to stumble upon it in the right time in terms
Yeah.
of the importance of Black Lives Matter, etc. And they probably greenlit it and pushed it further because they could seek to capitalize, not unlike blaxploitation films back in the day, on a black audience that was fervoring for a black superhero.
Well, where do you think this movie goes from now? Because clearly, I think they already announced Black Panther 2, and obviously, due to the monetary success, Disney's going to push that out.
They'd be crazy not to make a Black Panther.
Yeah, it would. And what do you think? How do you think the sort of tone of that movie is going to play out? Do you think it's going to be tied more into Marvel? Do you think it's going to sort of isolates itself again and have another Wakandan story, or what do you think is going to go on in that movie?
I think that there's plenty in the comics to go through, but I think the one thing that they have for the second movie that they didn't necessarily have for the first movie is leverage.
Mm-hmm.
So if they get Ryan Coogler to direct again, or if they get Joe Robert Cole to write again for the movie, they'll of course have to get the same actors for the movie.
Yeah.
So
all the ones that are alive.
Throughout, it's going to be everybody.
Not Forrest Whitaker. I love that guy. He died in the movie, didn't he?
Oops.
Yay,
Forrest Whitaker died. Oh no.
I like him as an actor. I like all the movies he's in.
Forrest actor is doing a caricature of Forrest Whitaker in all of the Disney movies.
I know.
Just like Saul Guerrero. Have you come to kill me? Sorry. Have you come?
He's got that crazy eye too.
Yeah. Listen, The Last King of Scotland, amazing movie. But
yeah.
Saul Guerrero and Zuri from this movie.
Yeah.
Also, we couldn't find a role for Djimon Hounsou. Anyway, I think they have a lot more leverage, so the story that any of them want to tell can be told in a more politically relevant way. So if we're talking about the oppression of black people in terms of colonization and different things like that, it can be told in a way that is more politically acerbic.
You think they have more leverage over Disney specifically, is what you're saying, or
yeah, they made like how many billions of dollars are they going to make from this movie?
Yeah.
According to Box Office Mojo, worldwide this movie has grossed $1.2 billion. You're telling me that a cast of people and director and writing team that have been able to get $1.2 billion doesn't have leverage in the next movie? That's crazy.
I don't know. Disney's crazy. Got a lot more money than that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they have to compete, and Disney that's all Disney money, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that these people are proven cash makers, so they have the ability to do more.
So you think it's gonna take? I mean, I guess. So you think it's gonna take more of a, or you hope rather.
I hope they delve further into the issues. I hope they really don't do that surface level kind of stuff that they did for a lot of the film. I hope they continue to incorporate so many strong female roles and different things. So it's not just black boys that have a hero to look up to. Black girls have a hero to look up to in the general character, or like Nakia and Lupita Nyong'o's character. So there's a whole bunch of role models to look out for and things like that. So, and yeah, I think there's a lot of good in this in this setup of this movie. I just thought the movie was super boring, so that also threw off my.
Yeah, I personally, I felt more connected to. I thought the characters in this movie specifically, like all the main characters, obviously, I thought they were more interesting than most other Marvel movies that I've seen. I mean, that's aside true. From obviously the main superheroes in Marvel, Thor, Captain America. I mean, they obviously chose good actors um, and they have a very large role, but they're pretty much the spotlight of the movie. And obviously they should be. It's when the movie's called Thor Ragnarok, it should be about Thor. But honestly, aside from Idris Elba in that movie, I didn't really care for any of the other characters in that movie. And I could say the same about literally every character in both Captain America movies, I guess, except for I guess I sort of like the Winter Soldier, but
I
no,
don't
I didn't
ever really
honestly.
care for Captain
I didn't
America that
even.
much.
Yeah, I mean, but exactly, I don't really care for Captain America either. But like, what I'm saying is, I like pretty much every character in, especially Forrest Whitaker. Kidding. In Black Panther, I thought they all pretty cool lines, and I think they were all delivered pretty well. I thought they did, on the acting side, I thought they did a pretty good job, personally. Um, but I guess
My critique isn't
now that
about the acting so
I'm
much.
sorry.
It's about my critique isn't about the acting.
No,
I
I
thought
know.
the acting was pretty good.
Yeah.
I just think that they didn't have a lot to work with in terms of the overall script strength. I thought this movie needed like 10% more jokes to make it bearable because it was so slow.
It was
Slow.
pretty slow.
It's
No,
a 2 hour and 20 movie in which like 20 minutes of action happens. That's supposed to be an action movie.
Yeah, right. But now that you've told me all your opinions on the movie, I see, I see what you're saying. I agree, and it has the platform to be something really special, because so many people are watching these movies, and I really hope that they can do better with the sequel. I think they will.
Not that, like, again,
do better with the political message. That's what I mean.
Yeah. And I really like the aesthetic piece of it. I like the integration of different, like, African fabrics and stuff like that.
African fabric.
The one thing that I would criticize is that they don't integrate a lot of African architecture. The other thing that I would say is that, like, Wakanda is special in Africa because they had vibranium and they were able to develop technology from vibranium. And it's unclear to me whether this is because vibranium gives them special ability to develop technology, or because African people actually have the intrinsic ability to develop technology. It was only because of the repression of the colonial system that didn't allow them to progress to the point that we are now. And if they had ability to do that, they would get further than obviously that is obvious. Vibranium gives them a special power to develop technology. That's great. I don't know what that kind of conversation means to how you apply that to the rest of Africa, because to me, we wouldn't have binary system without African knowledge system. Binary arises from a sand divination code that was used in East Africa that came through North Africa and up into Europe. So it's like there's a way to highlight like African actual accomplishments in history without having to imagine them in Wakanda, but that's a small gripe for me to have just because I know that these things exist. And the other thing is, like, African architecture is actually highly math-based. So there's a lot of fractals that are consciously used in African technology and architecture, which I didn't see a lot of. It was a lot of like Western interpretation of what Wakanda would look like with like the surface level being African. It's like you cover it with African design, but without the idea of what an African village is constructed like, without the idea of what an African building does. Like, there are places in Africa that the postal code doesn't work until you apply like a fractal system to the city, because the city is based on this kind of pattern that repeats itself and grows and shrinks in different societies. And like the spirituality and society is linked to how structures are made. Like, there's a village which has like U shapes. The whole village is a U shape. There's a small
Where is this?
I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
And I let Oh no! I lent my
Yeah.
African fractal book out to somebody to read, and they never gave it back to me. So
So
this
it's
is
larger U shapes, and then
and then every family home is a smaller U shape within that larger U shape, with the
okay.
largest U at the top being the chief's home.
And that's the outside U, or is that? I guess it would be
That's the
inside
whole U, and then
perimeter.
within that there are smaller and smaller
That's
U's, and
cool.
then the smaller U's they go even down to the size of like this big,
Uh huh.
like, which is about the size of my face, and those are for ancestors to live in.
Okay.
And there's a central ancestral village that's like with smaller within that U. That's filled with even smaller U's that are for the ancestors. So it's
That's
like
cool.
a societal mapping of different things, and you didn't see a lot of that within the structures of how things are built. It's a again, if it was an African society that was developed through African epistemology and ideas of how to build things and construct things, then you would see a lot more Africanness in their buildings and how the society was structured physically, like physical
Mm-hmm.
buildings, than
Just a city, modern city.
exactly. So
That's what it looked
so
like.
it's like a Western interpretation of what a sci-fi city would look like in Africa without really delving into African-based architecture.
Okay.
You're looking at how the Western influences or the Middle Eastern influences, like Islamic influence, in uh, African buildings now, and using that as your base reference rather than understanding the historical basis. Not to mention that why are we calling them tribes in Africa and peoples or nations in Europe? Like, what's the difference between a Germanic people and the Fula tribe or the Wakandan tribes? Like, uh, I have a academic based discrepancy with the use of the word tribe because
Mm-hmm.
it engenders a kind of lowness, low technology, things like that, which maybe this movie does combat with its high sci-fi, but in general, I don't think
Did they call them tribe? I don't
they do.
recall,
They use the
but they
word
do.
tribe
Okay.
throughout the movie.
Okay. Then I probably should have noticed that. Probably wasn't listening. Well, that's. I guess they chose that word. I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
I have
even
no
if you
idea.
talk to African people, a lot of the times they'll use the word tribe, but
Yeah.
there's also some levels of like colonial legacy that still exists within African people and African um, interpretation of words. It's oft debated in kinds of like the nuance of how to approach this in academic circles. And
Mm-hmm.
again, having studied Africa and Pan Africanism at the like master's level, there's a different scope of what I'm bringing to when I
Yeah.
watch this movie than somebody who hasn't done that. So
Like me. Well, yeah. So I guess if you have any final words, I mean, you just said
I
a lot of
spoke for
things,
like
but yeah.
45 minutes. You can
Well,
talk, man.
I don't. I thought. I mean, in the end, it's just another Marvel movie. So that's where I'm falling on it. And I know a lot of people. It's great that it features an almost entirely black cast. That's great, and I hope people are happy when they see it. You know, I hope they enjoy the movie. Obviously, you've already seen the movie if you're listening to this, um, and I mean, I think a lot of I hope it encourages people to become more politically active, whether or not its message is something you align with or not, or if it's dulled down, as Yvonne says. And I hope that it makes people happier. I don't know. It's. I thought it was an all right movie. I think on the scale of Marvel movies, it was average, um, and that's about it. I just hope the next one doesn't have as much CGI. Who knows? I like action scenes. All right. Jeez.
I prefer John Wick to Marvel action.
Yeah. Or the Matrix. And that has a lot of CGI, but at least it had the real people in it when they were doing it. But anyways, Yvonne, thank you so much for enlightening us about Black Panther. That's what if you're looking, if you're watching the video, that's what you're speaking of. Oh,
Yeah, it's
okay.
something like that.
All right, that's cool. If you have any questions for Yvonne about Pan-African studies, please sound them off in the comment section below. And if you have any questions that you'd like any of us to answer on the next podcast, go ahead and email them, or in the comment section below, of course, to gaminghungover@gmail.com. We'd love to keep the conversation going with you guys. Of course, we end our podcast every single week in a song in a segment called Hungover Radio. This is when you, the viewer or listener, can send in a song. Or if you'd want to, now live on Twitch, twitch.tv/jujubesgood, also in the the description below, or twitch.tv/comradeboyar. Either chat will work. But if no one comes up with a song, I will pick a song. There aren't many African-themed games that I play, anyways. I can't think of one, anyways. So I'm going to pick a song from a game I'm playing. Specifically, the overworld theme from Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. That should be playing any second now, and it's going to be in the audio portion and the video portion as well. But if you'd like to send in your music, send it into gaminghungover@gmail.com. Of course, we'll play your music first, and then not my music next week. But no one did that because you guys don't care. Thanks very much for listening to the podcast. I hope you learned something from Yvonne and whatever the hell I said. I'm Julien.
I'm Yvonne. I appreciated your counterbalance to what I was saying.
Look, I tried to make it a little happier in the light of look, it's a superhero movie, all right? What do you want? What do you want?
I know,
Come
right?
on. I'm kidding, but that's I think it. Whatever. We're gonna talk about it. All right. Catch you guys next week. Goodbye.
See ya. Bye.